Yep, got the white background because Mafia 3 is finally here! After over a year since the initial announcement trailer, it finally dropped through my letterbox last week and I've barely slept since. So here's my review of Mafia 3. So Mafia 3 is obviously the sequel to Mafia 2, but whereas Mafia 2 was set in 1950s Empire Bay, fictional version of New York, this one's set in 1968 New Bordeaux, which is a fictional version of New Orleans. You don't play as a member of the Mafia in this game, you play as Lincoln Clay, a half-black orphan who's just got back from Vietnam when his surrogate family is betrayed by the Italian Mafia and is completely wiped out. Lincoln takes a gunshot to the head but survives and then embarks on the warpath to take down the Marcano family. And then when you're on this warpath against the Marcano family, you can recruit 3 lieutenants, namely Cassandra, Burke and Vito. And Vito is really interesting because he was a character you played as in Mafia 2, so it's quite cool to see how that character has evolved nearly 20 years later than Mafia 2 being set. And when you take over a district, you choose which one of your 3 associates to give it to. And they give you specific perks if you give them that particular territory. So it might be, they give you a free car upgrade or get you hold of a weapon or explosives or things like that. However, if you leave one guy out and don't give him enough territory and don't do any of his optional loyalty missions, then he can eventually turn on you, just say, I'm done, and you have to go kill him. And then you lose all the perks you've got from that guy, which is, I think, is really interesting. That can happen at more or less any time in the game. And the game does have alternate endings, but it's not like a Telltale game. It's not like choices all the way through the game will affect the ending, apart from possibly using your associates. You just have 3 choices of endings at the end. And you can play Mafia 3 without playing Mafia 2, but bear in mind there may be some spoilers for Mafia 2, just because they make reference to characters from Mafia 2, which shows they're still alive, so they must survive Mafia 2. Especially if you do Vito's loyalty missions, because they do give you some more backstory to Mafia 2, which would spoil Mafia 2 if you still want to play that. So the plot is a typical revenge story where you've got to take over the city district by district. In each district there's a boss you have to defeat. So in that sense it is kind of by the numbers, we've seen it before, quite simplistic. But the acting in the cutscenes is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I heard all the actors wore full-body motion capture suits and were all in the same room when they recorded the cutscenes. And it really shows, because the acting on the characters and their faces, you really get drawn into it. It's better than some movies even. And all the characters are brilliant. They're not one-dimensional. They've got layers and they've got feelings. You know, Lincoln could easily just been a psychopathic, straight-faced, I'm doing on this goal. And he is to some extent, but there are occasions where you do see he's still got a bit of heart. There's still that old self left inside of him somewhere. And the story is framed as kind of a historical documentary, so you do a few missions and then you have some of the characters that Lincoln knows when they're old and grey talking about what happened, or some newsreel footage in a courtroom scene of one of the other characters, or passers-by being interviewed about some place you've just shot the hell out of. It's different. We haven't seen that in any game before, which I really like. And the combat, I think, is really good. I mean, it's not bringing anything particularly new to the table, but it's a lot different and a lot better from Mafia 2. And you really feel like this guy is a Special Force trained soldier. Like, from his actions, the way he moves, the way he takes cover, the fact that he shoots from either hands, which was a thing they were trained to do in Vietnam. It really feels good, and it also puts a strong emphasis on stealth. There was a bit of stealth in Mafia 2, but I think there was only 2 missions where you can actually be stealthy, and one of them, I don't think you get through the whole section stealthily. You had to just go ham on a biscuit, guns blazing. Whereas in this game, almost every situation you have that choice. We can just go in, guns blazing, call in backup crew, or you can stealthily through, take each body out, dispose of the body, and work your way through to get your objective. And I just want to say that the music is superb. They had over 100 licensed songs from Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Rolling Stones, Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, Jimi Hendrix. The list just goes on and on. And in Mafia 2, although I'm a huge fan of 50s music, there was still quite a few times where I couldn't find anything I liked on all 3 radio stations. Whereas in Mafia 3, the only reason I changed the station is because I knew there'd be something even better on one of the other ones. And so that was a real plus of the game. And the driving in this game is really good. I mean, I love the driving in Mafia 2, and in Mafia 3 it's more or less the same. The only thing is when you start to drift, the camera angle kind of changes, and I can see why they did that, because it makes it feel more like you're in a movie. But as a fan of driving games and cars, I felt I couldn't control the slide as much as I could have done if it just used traditional driving game camera angles. Now, obviously, being set in the South in the 1960s, playing as a black person, there were a lot of racial tensions at the time, And Hangar 13 hasn't shied away from this at all. They don't use the N-word every 5 seconds, like a Tarantino movie, but they use a mixture of other slurs, language, even just how people react in different parts of the city and when you're in different areas, and it doesn't feel like it's being particularly political or trying to make a point of it. It's more just adding to make you feel that you're in that place in that sense of time. And also, it would have been unfaithful and disrespectful to not have shown the racial tensions of the time. They even have the KKK, which allows for a fun bit where you can just mow down a huge crowd of unarmed people and not feel bad about it. I'm a terrible person. The only real downside to this game, I would say, is the open worldness of it. Because Mafia 2 wasn't really an open world game, it was more just scenery as you drove to and from objectives. Whereas in Mafia 3, there are points where you simply got to choose your mission, so you're in no hurry, so you can explore the world, but then there's even less to do in that world. You can't play poker, you can't buy clothes, you can't get drunk, you can't even buy a hot dog from a stand. It's ridiculous. Though on the clothes front, they are bringing in updates at some point where you would be able to customize your outfit once you unlock it after doing certain missions. But I just feel it was a real waste of potential in the game of having nothing to do in this big world. So now I'll go to the Frostball Films 5-phrase finale. Well, it should be games really, but then it wouldn't be alliteration. But anyway. Mafia 3 has brilliant music, superb acting, though a kind of simplistic plot, serviceable gameplay, but there really is nothing to do in this open world. Now, in hindsight, in my last game review of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, I did give it a higher rating than it deserved, but Mafia 3 I still think was a brilliant game despite its flaws, and I cannot wait for these updates to come out, as well as the DLCs. Maybe I'll do another video if there's enough to talk about it, but I'm going to give Mafia 3 a Frostball Approves of 4.2 out of 5. So yeah, sorry it's been so long since I've done one of these. I've been kind of busy with all kinds of different jobs and stuff like that, so I'll try and do these as and when I can, but my line of work is kind of unpredictable, so I don't know when I'll be free or not. Probably next one I'm going to do will be the collection, the Amazon original series, because the last episode is coming out soon, so that'd be quite cool to review. And comment below any other TV shows, movies, games you want me to review, and I'll see what I can do with those. And as ever, like and subscribe. Frostball out.